To our third talk, which is by Stuart Fraser, who hopefully is here and can start screen sharing. So Stuart works at the Greater Manchester Environmental Record Centre and had a lot of interest in birds and nature, and he sort of sounds like he's really excited to be working at the LRC and getting people involved in urban recording. And he's going to be talking to us about the challenges of nature recording in cities based on his experience. So over to you, Stuart.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Yes, so the title's really, I'll be going a bit more broad than that. Let me just share my screen first, 1 second.
I think we can see your screen okay.
You can, brilliant. Okay, lovely. So yeah, it's more about sort of urban recording as a local environmental record centre, and some of our history, some of the challenges that we've had, but also some of the opportunities that we see across urban recording. So really, first of all, the urban recording challenges, I think we've already spoken about it quite a lot over today and yesterday. They're well known. There's a perceived disinterest in nature in cities, lots of distractions with screens and noise and bright lights and all of that sort of stuff. Potentially limited habitat areas to record in, always the threat of development on local green space sites, lots of disturbance potentially from people, cars, etc., potential antisocial behaviour, and the old bugbear of obsession with neatness on our road verges, in our gardens, the gravel and decking and all of that sort of stuff. But I don't want to just talk about the challenges. I want to talk about the opportunities in urban areas as well. It's one of the advantages is actually it is a little bit warmer, so you will see those few species that are adapting well to climate change that are moving up the country. Obviously in Greater Manchester we are beginning to see those species arriving where maybe they haven't been historically. That can benefit some of those species more quickly in the cities. And I think the thing I really want to focus on is the greater need in cities for the perspective that nature can provide, from the stress, the noise, the lights, and the potential well-being that can actually offer our citizens. That's such an untapped resource. Obviously, lockdown. Many people have already talked about the massive increase in appreciation of green space during our lockdown and pandemic, and nowhere more than in cities has that been the case. We've seen it, so many more people excitingly getting in touch to say they've seen a hedgehog for the first time in 20 years and all these sort of things. So that's been a real time to act, we feel. Obviously, another benefit is more people is more recorders. The city attracts expertise as well. Taxonomic groups, the organisations may be based around cities, and various charitable organisations, also universities, and community groups and local interest groups, whether that be for a particular place or a particular type of nature or whatever that they are interested in. So these are all opportunities in urban recording. And if I just go to the next slide, I thought it'd be interesting to see a couple of slides to show you Greater Manchester. The perception, I imagine, is that generally it's just urban environment. A lot of it is. The 10 districts are on the screen there. This is actually a map we've put together from the local nature recovery strategy that we're piloting. I won't go into detail here, but you can see that actually within Greater Manchester or on the edges, there's some quite strong moorland, upland habitats. There's a strong river network and lots of woodland and strong wetland, particularly out to the west and the south, where there's a lot of old mossland habitat. So there are opportunities, but there's an awful lot of urban in between. There is rural, but a lot of urban in between. I thought, for contrast, these are the protected species maps that we have from the last 20 years of recording, which we use obviously for advising our ecology units and local authorities on things like planning applications. It just shows that the the whole of Greater Manchester has nature to record. So even though there are only pockets of rural landscape, there are species everywhere. So that's a combination of some of the Schedule 1 bird species, bats, newts, badgers, that sort of thing on the top left, and then on the bottom right you've got the Biodiversity Action Plan Section 21 species. So they are everywhere, and there is an opportunity to record across Greater Manchester. A little bit about the Local Record Centre, established in 2008. Really, the first thing was to establish the data gathering and our database, and also process creation for data exchanges, for providing information on planning applications, supporting our ecology unit in their efforts to review planning applications, but also to manage the register of sites of biological importance, which is the Greater Manchester Local Wildlife Sites register, and also to provide habitat and species insight for national and regional projects, and that's where we started getting involved in things like the local nature recovery strategy. After a few years of doing that, and that was before my time, we then moved on. We were successful with an HLF project bid called From Grey to Green, and that was really to focus it, bringing out into the community. We'd made connections through the local authority, we'd made connections through the through some of our partnerships with charities and the like, but this was really to reach out to the broader community, the recording community, the local experts, and engage Greater Manchester recorders. Very successful events. We engaged with taxa schemes, particularly with the bird and local bird and bats and mammals groups, which obviously boosted our protected species and general data. Various county experts, the inverts and botanical experts, but particularly also individual amateurs. And I wanted to just pick out a few stories that really stand out for me as just what opportunities there are out there for recording. Karen, who actually presented yesterday, her brilliant journey from bee-phobic person to the actual Bee Wars County recorder for bees. You've got another friend of mine, Debs, who was an ex-school teacher. She's now a botanical trainer, and Jodie will be pleased to hear works for the local housing association near me, and is an absolute inspiration getting the community involved in that sort of thing. A chap, Ken, who's a local recorder, formed a group to record and survey local sites, and as that group's been responsible for establishing and expanding a few SBIs in their area in Oldham. And I got told I had to put me in there. I was working in banking when the Greater Green HLF project started. Obviously, I always had a passion for nature, and as a result of learning more about recording and how actually maths and nature are very much linked, and analysis, retrained as an FSC biological recording UCERT, volunteered for a year, and now I'm here and very happy. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is, urban communities, they may lack a history in nature, but there are lots of people out there just waiting to be engaged and to become the experts of the future. And when you see the kids in a local urban park, it's the same fascination as those in rural settings. If you find something and explain it to the kids, they are just as fascinated. I also get lots of quizzical approaches, as Karen mentioned yesterday in her talk. People wondering, what are you staring at? Neighbours asking me what bugs they found in their garden. And I once got approached by a gang of teenagers in Moss Side. I was moth trapping for the City Nature Challenge a couple of years ago, and they just thought it was hilarious that I was out in the middle of the night with a light, and were really interested to see. So yeah, not what you'd expect necessarily, but a really positive experience.
Stuart, sorry to interrupt you. I just wondered if you could do something about the sound. We're getting a bit of a interference as you're talking, and it's making it a bit difficult to hear.
Is that any better?
Not quite.
Stuart, I think the problem is your computer fan's quite loud, so I don't think there's going to be anything you can do about it.
It's not. I can't hear it. I don't know what. Yeah. Something that gets picked up. So apologies for that. Usually the headphones make the difference, but it seems not. So yeah.
What it might be worth doing is, because I don't think we're getting your headphones, I think if you go to the microphone icon and check which microphone is selected.
Oh, okay.
Because it might be that it's using your computer microphone. Sorry about this, everybody.
I'm just going to stop sharing because I can't get the relevant. So in the audio settings.
Yeah, where the mute button is, there's a little arrow, or under select the microphone. Are there multiple options?
Okay, that hopefully is better now. Is that better?
It seems to have disappeared. Yeah, brilliant.
Good. Okay, thank you for that. Let me just reshare then. So yes, I'll skip through because I know we're a bit short on time now, but just the collaboration opportunities for LERCs. Really, we are in a unique position of having both the knowledge of the local habitats, the local sites and the species, and also knowing the regional recording community, having those connections with organisations, with local groups. And coming back to engaging more broadly new recorders, we're working with urban projects like My Wild City. The beauty of engaging with new recorders and boosting volunteer numbers is obviously there's funding available for that, as you know, in terms of boosting nature, but also boosting the engagement of broader communities involving deprived areas. And that will get more and more the case with local green space. We don't get involved in actually the funding process ourselves usually, but we work to support organisations that are doing that and provide that expertise, that local knowledge, and that collaboration works really, really well for us. I think the key message is just getting out of nature is great, going out to your local park and that, but actually to that real connection with nature comes through being able to understand the life cycles, being able to identify the different species and what they're up to. That's, I feel, a key element of well-being, and also a reason to come back for more and to come back often too. In terms of lockdown and the digital recording, digital recording is obviously a relatively new thing, but it's a benefit first of all in providing a greater section of the population with an ability to record, but also it makes things for us as a record centre much easier for us in terms of the data arriving in a format which we can upload far more easily and analyse, obviously. So something that we're very, very keen on encouraging, and we originally designed an app called Rodis, which was very, very successful, but we found that creating an app had some sort of notable issues with support. The goalposts kept changing in terms of the behind the scenes sort of IT, Microsoft, that sort of thing. So we've actually moved to an online recording website now called Swift. We've called Swift, much more flexible for us, and we have complete control of it. People can still use it on their phones. People can record either on their phones or on a computer or whatever. It's usable in the field. And we've also designed some forms for citizen science structured surveys, things that we really want to know about for particular projects. And we are currently running target surveys on things like willow tits, water voles, bitterns, dragonflies, farmland birds. So yeah, really successful at a simple, easy to use form, fairly intuitive, and for all ages. And we're finding that that it's we're getting some good feedback on that. That obviously goes straight to our database, but we also encourage iRecord for being available for all. We find the only shortfall with that can be that people don't necessarily know what they're recording, but we find it works really well with the taxonomic Facebook groups, who are fantastic. The hoverflies, the bees, the dragonflies. Are the ones that I use most, but there's one for everything, as we heard about slugs. So very knowledgeable, very friendly, which I think is a key thing, and will help with that identification and verification. Also wanted to mention the City Nature Challenge based on iNaturalist. It's a smartphone app I'm sure you're aware of. Really helps beginners with ID and location. So rather than relying on them understanding grid references, it is almost literally just take a picture on your phone and it will do the rest for you. We've seen a real growth in that. There's some figures from the City Nature Challenge over the last few years. A bit of a dip this year with COVID, but yes, it's been a real success, and we've still got records coming in because it was only last weekend that was. Have noted a wariness in a lot of the recording community towards new and inexperienced recorders using tech like this, and I thought I'd mention that. Of course it's understandable, and we do treat all unverified data with caution. Understand that there are risks involved with that, but everybody starts somewhere, and I was interested to note that the expert amateur kind of lack of connection or concern is no new issue. My granddad wrote a book called How to Study Birds in the 1940s from Manchester. And his quote there, a wide gulf between the bird watcher and the trained biologist. A measure of contempt often exists in the scientist for the anthropomorphic bird lover, whilst he in turn is regarded as a dust-dry man whose very training and attitude prevent him from enjoying birds. I thought that was a nice quote from 1945 to show that this is an ongoing thing. But he actually, in the book, encouraged amateurs to approach field ornithology or note-taking, as he called it, with scientific aims in mind. So bringing the two together, and that's what we're trying to do. Is see the digital smartphone as a kind of an entry and outreach system to help new people discover what interests them, and then when we've engaged them, say, okay, great, you're really interested in flies, you're really interested in plants, you're really interested in fungi. Here's how to record and become more expert at it and not rely on that technology. So that's the approach we're taking. 2 more slides to go, so I'll just whip through these. What do we do with the connections that we've made with people and the data? Already mentioned the LNERS Pilot. Already great for sort of, we've been able to enhance the sort of the national databases with a lot of local knowledge and insight from our sites of biological importance and from our local connections and species. And we've also got some really interesting outputs on each habitat. We've used habitat indicator species. We've used grassland here as an example. We've basically highlighted known grassland monads, 1 kilometre squares, and then we've highlighted a number of grassland indicator species monads where they had beyond just a few records, things like wax caps and various plant species. And basically we've compared the monads that have habitat but don't have records. We can send recorders there to boost our records and sort of check that is good quality habitat still, and vice versa. Those where we've got lots of grassland records but not a habitat noted, our ecologists can go and survey them for potential new SBIs. And finally, a future project, which another one that was a victim of COVID. We got as far as the submitting our bid to the lottery, and then everything had to be withdrawn just as we were ready to go, having had really good feedback on it. But fundamentally, it's what I'll finish on is just the local wildlife sites. As Liz mentioned earlier, there's ours are better than some in terms of our insight, because we do get an ecologist visiting them one day every 5 years. Believe it or not, that's good for the country. But obviously we need to know more, and some of them we have access issues, that sort of thing. So we designed this Nature Near Me project to mix recording with then engaging local people to understand their sites better, get involved in habitat creation, and give them advice on site management from our ecologists. And that's just a little circle of priorities that we got back from our community sort of surveying. What are your priorities when it comes to local sites and nature? So it was all about understanding how to to get sites selected for as an SBI, get advice on achieving or retaining it, promote the site through a website, source help to identify and record wildlife, get advice on improving that habitat and site management, and then source help on actually doing that site management. So we believe that that's a sort of an ongoing circle and can only improve the management and the protection from development of some of the best sites around Greater Manchester. And I shall finish there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Stuart, and well done for not getting flustered about the sound in the middle.
A bit.
I've suffered from that myself, so I know how frustrating it is when you don't realise what other people are hearing. But yeah, an excellent talk, and a lot of appreciation for the work that you and your colleagues are doing in the chat, and a few questions you might want to go and have a look at. Personally, I work on the Wetland Bird Survey, and I found it incredibly helpful to kind of partnership work that was done from Greater Green and getting some more coverage in urban areas of Manchester for websites. So there's obviously a lot of potential there for national organisation partnering with local organisations like yourselves. I had one question, if I may, from me, which was, do you find it quite hard to engage with the whole range of communities in Manchester? There's been a lot of sort of talk recently about diversity and biological recording and that kind of thing. And is that something you find as you're talking to the same sort of groups of people?
It is, yeah. I mean, I think it's a national challenge. I've seen lots of discussion about it. I don't have easy solutions. I think my personal opinion is small community groups is the way to go. I'm involved in the local park in Moss Side that we're doing what we can. Obviously COVID rather sort of suspended efforts on that, but we are doing what we can to organize walks, and I think a whole range of community groups is the way forward. I think national efforts are important, but I think where you can really make a difference is individual engagement, and there are so many inspiring community people. I did a talk on bees, and then we seeded some wildflowers with a local school in Moss Side, and just the excitement from the kids, and the understanding, and I found a bee over here, and all of that. And those kids are going to be the teenagers in the park in a few years, and hang on a minute, don't kick over that wildflower area because I planted that a few years ago. I think it's those sort of things that over time will make a difference. But yeah, it's a big process, and that's why we work with people like the Lancs Wildlife Trust, My Wild City, because that they have the time and the money to be able to help that, and we can point them in the right direction and work with them.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And yeah, if you'd like to go and look in the chat just in case there was anything that I missed, thank you very much.